Hi, and welcome back to another series of the podcast about cybersecurity on my channel. Now, today we're going to talk about cybersecurity in the home. So, we all want to protect our own homes, right? We want to make sure that our kids surf the internet correctly, most safely, you could say. We want to make sure that the devices we bring home can be used and stay here, and being used safe, and we want to make sure that everything we have information wise here at home is safe as well. Now, with the rise of home workstations, which is something that's been exploding after the COVID situation we had in the world, I'm seeing more people having issues with the home setup. And let's also talk about that in this episode. So the brief introduction is that the importance of cybersecurity at home, especially the rise of remote desktop and online activities, that's one thing, right? And, we really want to make sure that, or I want to make sure that you get some sort of information firsthand from me where I talk about what is the, great issue with having everything online. So, first of all, let's talk about securing your home network. Now, the very first part that is exposed to the internet is the router that is sitting in front of your. Some people say the hole in the wall, and that is just perfectly fine to say the hole in the wall, the fiber, the cloud, the internet, the ISP, the cable, whatever, right? It's many names for the same thing. You need to make sure that the default password of your home router is not default anymore. You need to make sure that you altered it to something long and difficult to guess. And you should think 16 characters, I would say, would be a good amount. Also, think about usernames. Does it have to be admin? Could it not be something different? For example, plant face or macaroni or pizza face or something like that. Why not, right? But you have to remember it still. So the more information the hackers know, the greater the chance it is that, they can brute force their way in or something like that. So at home, we always start with internet, and the most important part here is to make sure that you have your Wi-Fi configured correctly. You need to make sure that you at least try to use WPA3 because that is the most secure encryption cipher there is. That also mitigates what you call offline brute force attack. So that is a really great thing, but you still need to make sure and think about having the great password there as well. Also, make sure to update your router's firmware, and basically it doesn't really matter what kind of thing we talk about in the security industry. You always need to update your software. This is the number one rule. Passwords and software need to have them good and updated. That is the only thing that is mentioned more or less every time. And I know it fills the same spot in your heart every time I say it, but it's very important and people just tend to forget about it. And we're going back to protecting personal devices because we all have personal devices, and that could be something like this. Well, you have a smartphone. This is an iPhone, for example. It could be a tablet. It could be, and I'm going to restrict this to tablets and smartphones because kids these days, they probably don't have a laptop. The same way that we have the phone, or they have the phone, or the tablet. But, it kind of the same thing I'm going to, advise you to do on a laptop compared to a phone or a tablet. So install updates, no, same thing again. But you need to have some sort of antivirus software installed on your phone, your tablet. And you probably think, well, it's gonna take all my power because I remember in the old days. Well, I know in the old days, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, virus programs was just difficult to use because they did actually use a lot of CPU power and RAM because they have to run through the whole hard disk. So the hard disk size was particularly larger than the RAM, and And these days we have gigabytes of RAM and gigabytes of hard disk space. We also have really large CPUs and graphic cards that can aid in the assistance sometimes if the company created the software actually utilize this kind of thing. And we still have to use strong, unique passwords still and enable auto update. And that is probably the most important part of all. It's like to enable the goddamn, sorry for that, auto update. I see every time people buy some device, they buy something and they just forget about, enabling auto update. And that is the thing, enabling auto update is actually the same as saying I care. Because when you don't care anymore, you do not enable auto update, and you will be the one that might get hacked one day. You will be the target. You can potentially be the one. You can also just be like, oh, nothing happened to me ever, never. And great for you. I'm really happy. But you just have to know, someone always has to be the target. Maybe you got 5,000 employees in the company. It only takes one, and then the company is down, right? It doesn't really matter what you think. If you're a singular instance in your company and you're only one there, then it's really bad if you say these kind of things. If you're in a big company and you say these kind of things, it's even more bad, because then you could be the target. And we are kind of going back to this, safe browsing and online practices, because it's very difficult for your kids to know what to visit and what not to visit. There are different kind of apps these days you can install on your kids' handheld devices, smartphones and tablets, where you can basically make sure you control the device. I have a somewhat relationship with these kind of programs, because it's kind of surveillance in a way in their pocket, and can the parent actually keep their nosy hands off the privacy of their kids. Instead of thinking just security, you can say, oh, I can snoop into the conversation, listen to what he or she talks about, what are they talking about. And if you have a daughter or you have a son and you are worried about something, I know it's a thing. It's not that popular here where I'm from, these kind of surveillance things. But I do understand that from a standpoint of having smaller kids, it doesn't really matter, because you probably don't care too much about whether they talk about driving a train or a car or a truck or something like that in the kindergarten. But when they're getting a bit older, like 12, getting to the puberty and stuff like that, I understand that things happen in your body, and this is not a podcast of puberty, but it is kind of important in security, because when you are bombarded with hormones and stuff like that in your early age of life, you will probably be more susceptible to say yes to some things and no to other things, and probably have a more strong opinion about some things and vice versa. So I just have to mention this, because it's a thing. You can install one of these apps on your child's handheld device, and I kind of recommend you do it. But I also understand that it's gonna be a bit mind-boggling for some of you to do that, because what is it you're actually doing? But anyways, I said it, and you have to think about it. You have to advise always to use websites with HTTPS. It's a lot better these days. Most websites do use HTTPS. I do see some websites that have this kind of weird way of handling security by having the outer layer HTTPS controlled, and then behind of that, when you actually use the service, it's no longer using HTTPS. It could be something you log into, and then you redirect it to something different. And this is where you have to educate your kids into, basically, and also yourself, of course. I talk about kids these days, but it is because this is for home. And I kind of take it that you're an adult, and if you're an adult and you watched some of my videos before, you probably know what I talk about. But it also counts for you, adult, okay? You have to basically make sure that you educate everyone about, phishing scams. Also, what is a phishing emails? What is a scam? How does it work? You also have to make sure you limit personal information sharing. Not to just share stuff in a online web formula. There are ways the websites can collect your information, by misusing the trust of the users autocomplete feature in the browser. Because basically you can with CSS, um, that is a language to HTML used to develop websites with. And with that, you can, hide the other, formulas, the other text fields, and still steal all the information. If it just asks for email and you just say autocomplete because they want to type it, and then it takes everything else, that is actually stealing your information. So have to be aware of that. The best way is just to type the information every time. Do not use autocomplete. I know it's a bugger, but it's the way it is. We also have to talk about, the home situation. You work more from home, right? We are in a world that require us to be 100% both parents to a job, and also have kids that require 100%, and it doesn't really work that well. Most institutions that gonna take care of kids, like kindergarten and so on, will probably close, depending on where you live in the world, in the states or cities or whatever it's called where you're from. We don't have states in Denmark, but we just have land. We have something called municipalities. It's not really the same thing, but anyways, so you have to make sure that things are aligned in a certain way, and it's just more convenient to save that time to drive to work and drive back and do everything from home. And I understand that this is great for the all family convenience thing, and the problem arises when you want to work from home and bring your home workstation to home. The problem is not so much you want to do it. The problem is that at home, you are not as secure as you are at your job. When you are in your office building and you sit there with your phone and your clothes on, looking ready, you adapt to a environment that requires you to be more professional. But when you are at home, sitting in your underwear, only wearing, a t-shirt or something like that, to be comfortable. I understand that. We all do that. Nothing wrong with that. But then you are comfortable and you drop your parades and you're at home and no one's going to hack you. And you're wrong. You shouldn't be comfortable. You should have secured network for your work. You should basically have two internet connections, This the problem arises here is, how is that possible? Is there another solution to that? And there is to use a VPN always. When you work from home, make sure that you have everything separated, not to use the same computer, like work computer and spare time computer and so on. So let's recap, conclude this, and say we want to make sure that you educate your kids, about safe browsing, updating software, minding information is private and stuff like that. You want to make sure that your browsers, in most occasions, as much as possible, only can visit HTTPS sites. If not, be aware of that by looking at the lock sign in the browser. Also make sure that when you're using remote desktops, you separate your connection, or you use VPN, for example, and do not use the same computer for work and for spare time. So basically, there's many things to think about whenever you want to be secure. That doesn't have to be difficult. A minor few changes here and there makes the world a difference, and this is what this is all about. And this is why I'm sitting here making this podcast for you. So I want to say thanks for listening, and if you want to subscribe to my channel, I would be very grateful. It will help me grow the channel. It will help me to make a little more money from the channel, which is not making a lot, but a little more will be good, so I can buy new equipment and stuff for my channel, for you, to have better experience with the videos that I record. And if you want to have any questions, just, leave them below, and I will definitely get back to you as fast as I can. So stay safe out there, and see you again online.